Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever Spider-Man can. Can he swing from a web? I think he can, 'cause he is. Look out for the Spider-Man. Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Rush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Spider-Man, No Way Home, directed by Jon Watts. Spider-Man, No Way Home is a 2021 American superhero film based on the Marvel comic book character Spider-Man. Co-produced by Columbia Pictures and Marvel Studios, distributed by Sony Pictures, releasing it. It is the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming 2017, Spider-Man Far From Home 2019, and is the 27th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film is directed by Jon Watts, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. Same guys coming back from the previous two Spider-Man movies featuring Tom Holland as well. It stars Tom Holland as Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, alongside Zendaya. I guess they just don't have a last name for her. She's just Zendaya. I kind of want to hold back the rest of the cast before we get into it, just for preserving the cinematic experience, if you know what I mean. So, because this movie and the way that it's configured into the MCU, you will want to be caught up with the Marvel Cinematic movies. In my opinion, I think it's smart to just go ahead and have those under your belt. So having all of the 27 films under your belt does feel not ultimately necessary, but you're definitely going to want to know them. And you're also going to want to know your Spider-Man history, specifically probably the last 20 years of Spider-Man specifically on screen. Just having those key knowledge beats. You don't necessarily have to have comic book knowledge, but knowing the history of Spider-Man and the heroes, the MCU heroes, is going to definitely play into your enjoyment of this movie. It very much is the culmination of a lot of plot lines for many, many years and overlaying them onto one massive film. So it's a lot of people are going to kind of say this is the big ultimate Spider-Man movie. So I'm going to talk about this in two separate ways before getting into the spoiler section. So the first way we're going to talk about it is just strictly from the technical standpoint. And if you have not seen the marketing for this, I'm going to try to dance around and Spider-Man my web, create a web around the plot so that we can talk about it without going too in depth and without you knowing who's actually or what actually is happening in the movie. I think this is one of those movies where you want to go in knowing the least amount of stuff about the movie, but you want to know as much as you can about the history, specifically the media history of Spider-Man, where he is cinematically. There's so much behind the scenes and technical logistical configuration that is making this movie happen. It's mind-blowing from that standpoint alone. So basically, behind the scenes, I cannot believe that this movie is even being made. It feels like a dream in a way, like a really awesome Spider-Man dream or something like that. I don't even know. So I will say this first little probably couple minutes we're going to talk about this, just the technicals about what we thought about the movie without going into details and not even talking about the cast as well. So I personally did know way more than I wanted to going into the movie. I think there was about a trailer a day for the past 2 years. It felt like they were like, did you know who this is in the movie? Did you know this guy's in the movie? Did you know they are in the movie? Did you know she's in the movie? Did they? I was getting blown up like random times of the day that so and so was going to be in the Spider-Man movie. It felt like it was a joke. It was of how many people and how big this cast was going to be. So if you're going into this movie not knowing anybody that's in this movie, I wish I could have that theatrical experience, because it felt impossible to stay away from the spoilers. So going into this, the ambition that they had going into this and just expectations were extremely high. I mean, it was hard not to be because of how much they were pumping the theatrical uh, the trailers and whatnot. So going into it, yeah, it was pretty high, and I really had no idea what the reviews were, to be honest. I thought it started out okay. Now, for as good as reviews as everyone's giving it, why did it just start out okay? I think it just started out okay, kind of slow starting in the way that it's building the narrative and getting you involved and entrenched in this story. Very much the past two Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland have had directed by John Watts, have been very much the John Hughes type young adult narrative of Spider-Man, and very much has felt like, even though he's got superhero powers, he's got real world, down to earth problems. How is he going to get to prom? How is Spider-Man going to ask out, his girlfriend? Ask his girlfriend's dad that what the deal is. Can I take your daughter out? That type of thing. Not necessarily the biggest problems on a worldwide national scale. So they felt way more relatable in that way. But with saying that, I did feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man was lacking this sense of dramatic, what is it called? Kind of the feeling of it. There's so much of the charismatic jokingness that comes from the Spider-Man character, from across the years, from the early Sam Raimi Spider-Man to even the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, which were not exactly loved, but they still had that element of him kind of joking around in a way. And that is definitely Spider-Man's personality. But both of those characters, the previous iterations of Spider-Man in the previous two, by the previous movies, were by definition, they felt darker in a way. They felt like they had the tonal balance of the dramatic elements of loss. And I felt like Tom Holland's Spider-Man was rooted in a sense of dramatic comedy in a way. Like he would kind of, throw jokes left and right to kind of, spur the moment. But then when he actually lost, what happened in the end of Endgame, which I expect you to have seen by now, is that we lost basically his biggest mentor, Tony Stark. And so I did feel that this was kind of adding on to that feeling of Spider-Man needs to kind of grow up in a way and mature. And I felt like this movie is pushing the ball forward in ways that I was not expecting. Because in the same way that I felt like he was still kind of a kid after he loses Tony Stark, Far From Home kind of comes in and is still very much a romantic comedy in a way, in the way that it's kind of shot. And so I honestly didn't feel like it was too, like, I don't need it to be draggy and sad and all that type of Spider-Man, sad Spider-Man swinging and stuff like that. But I felt like he definitely needed to, quote unquote, like grow up and mature in a way that I was like, we've been seeing him do this since 2017 now. And even as early as I think 2015, whenever Civil War was, MCU Civil War. But we've been seeing him almost play Spider-Man probably just shy of half a decade. And so it's time to kind of push him out of the high school area, and maybe he's in college by now. He's pushing mid 20s right now. And I think he's not even in college at this point in this story. And so it's like, all right, time to get him out of here. And of course, because of the pandemic, it pushes the time back a little bit more. So Tom Holland's obviously going to be older. But with saying that, this movie has the epic grand scale that you're looking for. It has the nostalgic pieces that I think that Endgame really reveled in a way, and didn't oversaturate the market with the kind of quote unquote Easter eggs that I think that they want to plant. I think the majority of it works on all cylinders. The comedy is something I do have. It's starting to really grind my gears on the Hawkeye show a little bit, actually. I'm starting to notice this setup punchline between dramatic elements in MCU comedy that take away from these comedic setups that are taken away from dramatic times in elements or plot driven elements or scenes that really need to just kind of sit there and let them be sad. My God, I don't need them always cracking a joke to kind of like, oh, they're gonna be all right. Oh, you son of a bitch. It's like, I don't need a joke every time. That not everyone needs to be Roman Roy on fucking Succession with a quick zinger, because they're normally not. So sometimes I kind of wish it would just like revel in the moment a little bit. That's something that I did feel like the older Spider-Man movies were very much comfortable doing. They were comfortable being in a sad moment and in more dramatic moments, which I feel like I haven't really felt in the MCU Phase 4 much at all. The Phase 4 comedy has been very wonky in my opinion. So that is my kind of light review without talking about any of the cast. I would give it an 8 out of 10, saying that it starts off a little bit slow and is trying to find its footing. It's almost like watching somebody complete a dance, but then by the end, they are the freaking master of it. I really do feel like this movie was probably created from the tail forward. Being that they knew where they wanted the end of this movie to go, and then they continued to write to the beginning of the movie, because it very much feels like the beginning of the movie is kind of like slow to get their gears up. They're trying to stand up for the dance. Like, oh, I guess I'll do it. It's like, when you actually got the moves, but it takes a minute to kind of like warm it up, kind of thing. So, yes, that's my light review of just the movie without the cast. Now, I know that was kind of hard to say without having anybody in there. Let's talk about it with knowing who's in the marketing for this movie. Now, this is where the section was for everybody that still wants non-spoilers, but you've seen the trailers and everything, so everybody knows who's going to be in this. So I'm going to try to keep it still as spoiler free as possible. I'm looking at the list to make sure that I got everybody without Okay, so we know Tom Holland's in it as Peter Parker. Zendaya, who I believe right now is his real life girlfriend, which I think the on screen chemistry between Tom Holland and Zendaya has never been better. It's almost to like, y'all stop being so cute. Oh my gosh. That kind of thing. Just stop it. They could probably just make an independent film themselves without even having to be attached to some sort of IP, because I think they've created that kind of couple, that kind of power couple. So we have Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who's been in fucking everything. I just saw him in Power of the Dog. That was pretty interesting movie. Jacob Batalon, who's his best bud. John Favreau is Happy. We have Jamie Foxx. He is in the trailer. So he is his real name is Eric Malone Bishop. Oh wow, I had no idea that was Jamie Foxx's real name. Oh, okay. So so Jamie Foxx is coming back as I think like Electro. And this is in the trailer. Don't say I'm spoiling this for you. Willem Dafoe. So d- legendary actor Willem Dafoe, 4 Academy nominations. Like the dude's amazing, and he steps back in as Goblin, the Green Goblin, just like he never left. I mean, from not even just like looking like it, looking like the character, but acting like him too. It is scary how good this guy is just stepping back into this role seamlessly. And I've heard, what is he, well over 60, mid 60s or something like that. And he is in some of the best shape of his life. I was floored by it. I think maybe like one time I couldn't tell that it was him. I was like, wait, that's like a 30-year-old guy. But I was like very surprised how much on screen this guy was. Again, this is in the trailers. This is in the poster. This is in the marketing. Alfred Molina from Spider-Man 2. So we have the original OGs from Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire's villains in those. We have the Willem Dafoes as Goblin, the Green Goblin. We have Alfred Molina as Dr. Octavius, Benedict Wong from MCU. I was like, mine, everything, everybody's in the party. Everybody's here. And of course, Tony Revolori as Flash Thompson. And oh my gosh, Marissa Tomei, just like fine wine. Just like fine wine. Okay. So we have okay, so I think we got just about all of the cast that I can talk about that has been shown in the trailers. And so continuing on in the film, Parker asks Doctor Strange to make his identity as Spider-Man a secret again, with magic following its public revelation, but it breaks open the multiverse and allows 5 supervillains from alternate realities who have fought alternate versions of Parker to enter his universe. This is like the fucking end game of Spider-Man. Dun, 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 or Spider-Man, or whatever I don't know what I'm even doing now. But anyways, I was like, dude, hearing all of this stuff, my inner like 7-year-old me was like, I was exploding mentally, physically, and emotionally, spiritually, all the least. I was so hyped hearing all of these characters, all of some of my favorite villains of all time. I didn't even like rewatching movies too often when I was growing up, but when I did, I rewatched the shite out of them. Spider-Man 2, I watched Doc Ock do all this stuff, fight Spider-Man like 20 bajillion times. I had all the video games. I was not a comic book nerd, but I was always playing the video games. I was always rewatching the movies. These were some of my favorite movies of all time. And so when the Garfield movies came through with their villains and the Jamie Foxx's Electrode villains, I was kind of in high school at that point, and I wasn't really too interested in. I think I was in high school, and I was not too interested in those movies because I looked, I guess, younger audience for me, and I was pinky up. I was like, I'm only interested in rated movies. I don't know. I had a chip on my shoulder for some stupid reason, but I did end up seeing those other 2 movies, so I am well rehearsed in the Spider-Man film lore over the past 20, 30 years. And so all of these individuals were very recognizable to me, and having them at least show up was amazing. And of course, having the Doctor Strange crazy aesthetic with the mystical magical elements that we have Spider-Man kind of interacting in. It was just like an experience. I was just floored, blown away. I was just like, I'm here for this. I was like, and this got to be one fucking expensive ass movie. With a running time of 148 minutes on a budget of 200 million, it's gonna pack a punch. A lot of people are predicting that this movie is going to make pre-pandemic type numbers, which would be amazing, but also be safe out there. We tried to go at like 3 o'clock on a Thursday, so tried not to go during too much of a busy time. But they had screenings all freaking day and afternoon. I was like, so it's gonna be Spider-Man all day, baby. And so I was floored by this cast, and I was amazed by it. And like I said earlier, it was an 8 out of 10, a little rocky start, but having all of these characters step right back into their roles and make earlier movies better, in my opinion, I was like, I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. And their way to kind of explore the multiverse in a way just continues to blow my mind. Of the sandbox in my head as a kid, you know how a lot of us, either were in our minds, would be like, what if Superman fought Batman? What if Superman, what if Spider-Man was fighting Doctor Strange? What if, all this crazy, big what if type stuff. And I feel like we're actually getting to see this type of stuff in real life now. I'm like, this is what we've been waiting for. So, yeah, I was floored about this movie. A third MCU Spider-Man film was planned during the production of Homecoming in 2017. By August 2019, negotiations between Sony and Marvel had to alter their deal, in which they produced the Spider-Man films together, ending the Marvel Studios, leaving the project. However, a negative fan reaction led to a new deal between the two companies. A month later, Watts, McKenna, Summers, and Holland were set to return at that time. I remember hearing about this, and this was like, there was supposed to be like only one or two Spider-Men at this point, or I think the second one, it was around the second one, and they were just like, yeah, no more Spider-Man because we didn't get the negotiation. And Tom Holland, basically real life Spider-Man, went up there and said, we need Spider-Man. I've worked too hard for this shit. And Tom Holland literally saved Spider-Man alongside the rest of the fans. So we're probably only seeing this movie because of you guys and gals and Spider-Man and Spider-Women and non-binary spiders. I don't know, but Spider Pigs out there. Everybody came together to save Spider-Man. And it felt like we were, Spider-Man 2, where if you want to get to Spider-Man, you got to get through us. That kind of shit. Oh, I love it. So let's see. It led to negative fan reaction, and a new deal was struck between the two companies a month later. Watts, McKenna, Summers, and Holland were set to return at that time. Filming began in October 2020 in New York City before moving to Atlanta. Later that month, wrapping at the end of March 2021, No Way Home. So it was half COVID production. No Way Home explores the concept of the multiverse and ties the MCU to past Spider-Man film series, with numerous actors, including let me see. Okay, so I can't say anything from here. So yeah, like I said, you're gonna want to be rehearsed in the Spider-Man lore. Let's see what. Right now I'm scanning spoilers right now. Do not look at any of the stuff online for Spider-Man No Way From Home. Social media, everything is completely spoiled. It is, nobody has the sanctity to just leave it alone and say go see the movie. But this is what I'm trying to do, is be very tiptoeing around it. Okay, so Spider-Man No Way Home premiered at Fox Village Theater in LA on December 13th, 2021. It was theatrically released in the United States on December 17th as part of Phase 4 of the MCU. The film has received positive reviews from critics and praise for the performances on the chemistry on set, screenplay, emotional weight, action sequences, cinematography, direction, and musical score. I agree with absolutely all of those, with the exception of that first 30 minutes of the movie. And so far, it's grossed well over $43 million worldwide. And that's just on the first day. It's Friday morning right now of the first morning of it. So give it some time to make some money. I really do think it's going to do gangbusters. I bet this movie makes well over 600 million worldwide in the first month or so. I think this is just going to be ginormous. So yeah, this is a massive movie. Let's hop into spoilers for everybody. Like I said, 8 out of 10, and I would absolutely recommend this if you're a Spider-Man fan. Go see it. Thank you for listening to the spoiler-free section of the podcast. For the entire podcast, be sure to go to patreon.com/LuckyDog For the entire review, you'll get to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. Although we will leave a nice little chunk of change of a review for you to listen to on the YouTubes, on the website, LuckyDogPodcast.com. And, of course, follow us on all the social medias as well, LuckyDog Podcast. Thumbs up, subscribe, follow, web sling your way to whatever social media you can. That's how you support the podcast. 5 stars us on iTunes. You know what to do. So, Clash, back to your seats now, Clash. Okay, so I basically kind of gave a nice little overview of everything. We're about to get into the spoiler section. At this point, I would have expected you to have seen the movie, seen the mid-credit scene and the post-credit scene. We're going to talk about everything from here on in the film. So, let's get into the plot. 1 week after Quentin Beck's attacks in Europe, a video is released in which Beck frames Spider-Man for his murder and reveals Spider-Man's true identity as Peter Parker. Parker and MJ escape the media and head to Parker's apartment, reuniting with his Aunt May and Happy Hogan, with the apartment surrounded by the Department of Damage Control. Parker, MJ, May, and Ned Leeds are taken into custody and interrogated, but have their charges dropped with their help of a lawyer, Matt Murdock. So everybody was like, holy Santa Claus shit! Fucking Daredevil's in the show! Oh, fuck! Oh my gosh. I remember sitting in the theater and my mind was like, I had heard one speculation about it. I was like, I had heard there's a possibility that Matt Murdock is in this and Charlie Cox is going to reprise his role as Daredevil. And it's like, yeah, right. That ain't gonna happen. I was like, the Netflix Marvel television shows always said that they were in the MCU and they always referred to themselves as being in the MCU. But since the multiverse had been created, I was like, there's no way that's going to be in the same universe. They're here, or at least fucking Matt Murdock's here. Let's do it. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready for some fucking Daredevil on the big screen. People in the theater, like, so excited. So fucking excited. Oh my gosh. I'm sure y'all were hype. I was hype. We were all hype. All my boys were hype. We were in the theater. Everybody was hype, yelling. It was amazing. So fucking Matt Murdock, we are bringing the worlds together. And this is not the only big reveal in Marvel this week. So yeah, this first little bit of them getting surrounded by the apartment and everything, and them being in trouble at first, but then not being in trouble, did kind of feel like it went nowhere. I thought it was going to be the extenuating circumstances of what pushed and propelled this movie. This is kind of where I was having a little bit of problem with the movie, of the reasoning that he wanted people to forget that he was Spider-Man. He basically goes to Stephen Strange, and he's like, can people forget about me being Peter Parker so I can, I don't know, go to college, MIT, that type of shit. And of course, it's a very uh, young-minded way of thinking and whatnot, but the majority of all the Avengers are already publicly not known, and they're looked at as heroes the majority of the time. I mean, give or take, like what's going on with the Falcon thing going on, can't get a damn loan, but that's another story. Um, so I did think that the reasoning for this movie is kind of where my issues kind of stem from, of the reasoning that he wanted people to forget who he was at first. Um, so yeah, Parker, MJ, and Ned return to high school, but all of their university applications are rejected due to the recent controversy. This was the biggest thing. I was like, they've saved way more people than hurt. And so I feel like there would be some sort of organization or somebody that would want them on their team. Um, can Tony Stark not start a college or a university that Parker and all of them, MJ and Ned, can all get into? Like, it felt like the biggest problem was they didn't have any money, and yet they are rubbing shoulders with billionaires. So that was in fucking wizards at the same time. So I'm just like, stretches the believability on my end. But that was just me. I felt like there was a better way or a better reasoning of why he would want to do this. So Parker consults with Stephen Strange in the Sanctum Sanctatorium. That's an interesting name. Asking him to cast a spell to make people forget he is Spider-Man. Despite Wong's warning of the consequences that could occur, Strange casts a spell anyway. Like without even thinking about it. I feel like he just like whipped it up real quick, like he was making a recipe. Strange casts a spell anyway. However, Parker constantly requests alterations while Strange is casting the spell, which he's not very clear about. I felt like he just tells him to stop talking a little bit, but he's not like, don't talk during the ceremony of doing the whoosh. And Parker is just doing that anyway, causing it to be corrupted. Angered, Strange kicks Parker out of the sanctorium after learning that Parker did not consider contacting the MIT acceptance board before requesting the spell. Like, dude, come on, just use your freaking head. So Parker goes to the Alexander Hamilton Bridge and tries to convince an MIT administrator to accept Ned's and MJ's application. I did feel like this was a little bit obvious, and I had seen the trailers and stuff like that, so I knew what was going to happen. But I wish I had not known so much of this was going to happen. But even though the reveals were still fun. But on the bridge, they are suddenly attacked by Otto Octavius, who just steps into this role. Alfred Molina just comes in out of nowhere, basically walks out as Spider-Man 2 pretty well. I thought this was some of the best CGI I've seen in the Spider-Man universe the past 3 years. Could just be that's the most recent one I've seen, but he rips Parker's nanotechnology from his iron spider suit, causing it to bond with his mechanical tentacles, which I kind of feel like don't really do much, but that's just, I don't know. And of course, the nanotech can just do anything. I'm tired of nanotech. Nanotech is kind of an excuse for just green screen, in my opinion. It's like, oh, we'll just make it do nanotech technology. Doesn't have to be explained. So it's causing his causing it to bond with his mechanical tentacles. After discovering that this is not the Peter Parker, hitting him with a "Hello, Peter," and it's the wrong Peter. He's like, "You're not Peter Parker." Who rips Parker's nanotechnology from his. Oh, sorry, I just said that. After discovering that this isn't Peter Parker, he previously fought Octavius, causing his robotic arms to be disabled by the nanotechnology. And it quickly renders Otto Octavius as kind of just being a fool that has these arms attached to him that he can't even control. If you can't control the arms, you're fucked. I remember in Spider-Man 2 that I think that the arms were kind of controlling him behind that little chip in the back of his head that he had to destroy in that one. But still, that was it does make him kind of useless without not being able to use the arms. So Strange reveals that the spell has begun bringing the people from every part of the multiverse who knows Parker is Spider-Man into their world. With the help of MJ Ned, Parker decides to help capture any other visitors they find and capture Max, Dylan, and Flint Marko. So I was not ready for Jamie Foxx and the Sandman to show up. I was like so floored by the Sandman showing up. I know he's not like my favorite character or anything like that, but still, I was just like, oh shit, Thomas Hayden Church back? It's fucking Sandman? Oh, Jamie Foxx back? It's Electro? And I was like, oh shit, man. I was like, they got everybody in the club. It felt like the Coachella of Spider-Man movies or something like that. I was like, God dang. Oh, went too hard. Okay, so they find and capture Max Dillon, Flint Marko. Elsewhere, Norman Osborn is retrieved after going to a feast. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So Norman is retrieved after going to a feast building, seeking help. Strange wants to send the villains back to their respective universes to meet their fates. However, Parker wants to cure them and help them before sending them back in order to prevent their fated deaths. And that's what they all had in common, is they all have some sort of fatality with Spider-Man in a way. He frees them and confines Spider-Man frees them and confines Strange in the mirror dimension after a brief fight. And this is the fight where they are fighting through the multi-dimensions of fucking Doctor Strange is like, shifting the world on top of each other. And it's like, and they're doing the whoosh and some of the whoosh. And he's like, Parker, don't do this. Let me just say that Strange is not having kids probably anytime soon at this point. He is so pissed at Peter that Peter is just trying to help the villains out in a way. And knowing what happens at the end of this, it's like, it sucks that it's because of his good nature of what happens, it still comes back to bite him in the ass, no good deed goes unpunished kind of thing. So they're confined Strange into the mirror dimension after a brief fight. Very cinematically action heavy, and it's some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. So mirror faded dust, take him down. Parker successfully. So Strange in the mirror dimension after a brief fight, taking the villains to Hogan's apartment. Parker successfully cures Octavius by using Stark's industry technology to replace his broken inhibitor chip. When cures are developed for Osborn and Dillon, the Goblin, the Green Goblin, persona takes over Osborn before the cure can be administered. And let me just say, the parental aspect of Norman Osborn overlooking Peter Parker was so amazing. And for like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, it really felt like there could have been some sort of Norman Osborn, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, uh, what if universe of them working together. And I really did like the dynamic there. Tom Holland always works well when he has some sort of like mentor over him. He works well as the kind of wide-eyed, inquisitive kind of character. I would really like to see him in like a Back to the Future type, maybe not like a Reduct or like a of that type of nature, but I do think he channels very much of that Marty McFly mysticism, you know? And I think that he kind of has that here. Um, Again, when he's interacting with Norman Osborn, some of the most enticing and interesting scenes I thought were with them too. And so the Green Goblin persona takes over Osborn before the cure can be administered, and Jamie Foxx is floored. He's like, what the hell? Like, he is so taken back by Green Goblin's turn. And I swear, I don't remember them making Jamie Foxx kind of just this persona that was really loud and not a little bit obnoxious, but still like hilarious. I don't remember him being that in that Electrode character in the second movie, but still, I was laughing out loud when Jamie Foxx's character was taken back by Green Goblin's turn. He was like, "Oh fuck." And so I want to say that despite them having so many villains, it was very clear what the motivations were. It felt like they kind of paired off the two different types of villains. You had Sandman and Electro together, and then you had like Octavius and Norman Osborn together in a way, and it kind of had them gave them a way to have like banter in a way without having too much screen time dedicated to someone just like giving a lot of exposition. So the Goblin, Green Goblin, and every time one of the characters would show up, my buddy beside me, Cam, would go in my ear, and right before they would show up, he'd be like, "Oh, Goblin, Octopus, Spider-Man." I was like, "Dude, would you stop doing this?" I was like, "I know who's gonna come up. Stop." He's like, "Fox, Fan Man." I was like, "Stop!" I was like, "Stop doing this." But I was with 4 of my buddies, and I swear that they were doing front flips over my fucking seat, talking over me about what the fucking movie was going on. It'd be a Goblin, Octopus, Electrode. I was spazzing. I was like, "I haven't seen the goddamn thing." I was losing my sheet. He was like, "Strange." I was like, "All right, that's it." And so they weren't the only ones doing it. I had other people in the theater that were like yelling out names who they thought were going to show up. But I was just like, y'all need to calm the fuck down. All of y'all need to calm the fuck down. And anybody that's talking through the fucking movie needs to get shut or both. So anyways, the Green Goblin convinces Dylan to remove the device that Parker put on him to cure him. And despite the best efforts of Parker and Octavius, who dispatched by Dylan, the four escape, and the ensuing battle, May is mortally injured by the Goblin. And basically in the same way that the Green Goblin is taken out by his own glider in Spider-Man 1 with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and he does like a backflip and misses the glider, and then the Goblin actually hits himself and spears his own chest. But this time May doesn't do a backflip; she just gets hit in the fucking back. Originally, when they're shooting this, she's like standing up, and she kind of just like looks shocked a little bit, and you kind of look at her. And originally, when she's hit by that glider, I'm like, was there like spikes or something on that, or did she just get hit by like a really heavy drone kind of thing? And I was trying to figure out how she was like okay, and then she kind of just like is looking at Peter, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're kind of holding this shot a lot longer than expected. And she's like, kind of like, I'm okay. I'm okay. And she's kind of just keeps on repeating that. And then she's like, kind of lays down for a second, I'm okay. Yeah, good. And Tom Holland's character, he's just like, like losing his shit. And I'm like, oh my God, did we just witness Aunt May's death? I was just like, oh my Lanta, Goblin killed May. Oh my God. And on top of this, it was sort of Peter was the one that was unraveling this thread. It's like, Peter. Damn, I didn't think they had to go that hard. I was like not ready for all that. The way that they were shooting it was like, oh, she's gonna be okay. And the way that she was hit and not like immediately it's not like she had like a big thing coming out of like a spear coming out of her stomach or something like that. It's just like, it's more or less the slow reveal because she stands up fine and she's like kind of like looking and then she just slowly goes down. And then the SWAT team is coming in and they're still shooting at Spider-Man. Like, I was like, oh my God, they're shooting at May. I was like, fuck. I was like, oh my Lanta, they're going to fucking like just decimate the body of Aunt May or what. This was not what I was ready for. This was not in the trailer. This was not what I thought. I was like, this is intense. So this did check the box for the drama on the Spider-Man movie. This was like where it really started to shine that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going to irrevocably mature from this movie. And I was like, wow, this is not what I was expecting. Unpredictable, which is that is something I like because I did feel like the majority of the movie felt relatively predictable up until this point. I was like, oh shit, now we got some stakes. I was like, wow. So yeah, and this is when, and the craziest thing is like May is trying to fight the Green Goblin at this point, and she's being a badass. She's going down fighting. I gotta say, Marissa Tomei just fucking killed it. Didn't mean it like that, but you know what I mean by that. But she was going badass. So in the ensuing battle, May is mortally injured by the Goblin, with Parker unable to save her as she succumbs to her wounds. MJ and Ned accidentally learn, and Happy rolls up as this whole thing is going on. So he's like super sad. We're all sad. Everybody's sad. MJ and Ned accidentally learn how to open portals using Strange's sling ring, which they use in attempt to find Parker. Instead, they summon alternative versions of him from different universes. And I have got to say, I had heard so many castings in this movie. I knew Dafoe, Molina. I knew Toby was going to be in this. I had no idea about Charlie Cox's Daredevil. I had heard through the grapevine, but I had actively been told so many times that Andrew Garfield was not going to reprise his role as Spider-Man. And I cannot tell you how happy I was to be wrong. I was so excited to see Andrew Garfield show up and inhibit the role of Spider-Man in the same room as Tobey Maguire as my OG Spider-Man. I was like, I can die and go to heaven now. I was like, this is not something I ever thought I would see in my lifetime. It's not ever something I thought I was really craving in my lifetime. Like I absolutely needed. I couldn't wait to have them all on screen. But when it happened, oh my God, it just hit so well. I felt like this movie might have been written from this scene, because this is one of the strongest scenes of having the OG Spider-Man music come in, and it feels like I can't even hum it right now. Something like that. So it feels very like noble and stuff like that. And seeing my OG Spider-Man, I loved having them back on screen. First of all, we haven't had enough Tobey Maguire on screen since I haven't seen him since the Gatsby, I don't think. He's phenomenal, and he steps seamlessly right back into the role. He he takes the persona of the Spider-Man that we saw in Spider-Verse, the older, more veteran, seasoned Spider-Man, and takes that even to the more nth degree. I love seeing older superheroes because it's like they were badass, and they still are badass, but they still have that like sprinkle of, the problems that older folks are having to deal with. Hawkeye is actually kind of dealing that in a way too. Okay, so where the hell are we? Okay, so sling ring and okay, so Ned and MJ find their Parker, who is confronted by them after learning of May's death. He meets the other Spider-Men who share their own stories of losing loved ones and encouraging him to fight in May's honor. The interaction and the way that that Peter is being able to talk to different versions of himself, I just can't even articulate it in my mind or in my head how cool and awesome it was to experience that. I know that it's just a movie, but it felt like more than a movie at that point. I was like, this is just awesome. I love everything about this. And I thought about it so many times as I was watching the movie that they needed the Andrew Garfield dynamic. I was honestly surprised because I have love for Tobey as Spider-Man. I definitely got love for Tom as Spider-Man, but Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, I felt like they brought different elements of the persona of Peter Parker to life that felt so grounded, and I loved every minute of it. I want to see them on screen together again. So anyways, absolutely adored that Andrew Garfield was in this as well. I really come to like that guy as an actor, considering him not being one of my favorite Spider-Man from that that wasn't even a trilogy. I think it was just like from that universe. But anyways, so yeah, I don't think all of this would have worked if it was just Tobey as Spider-Man. So they cooperate on curing the remaining villains and lure them into the Statue of Liberty. Ned and MJ protect the original bind spell by Strange by this box that can basically solve. It's the MacGuffin box that can do anything, So they protect the bind spell by Strange as Spider-Men battle their enemies together. And we've seen it in the trailer. It looked like one Spider-Man was about to fight 3 villains, but everybody had talked about it, how 2 other Spider-Men had been erased from the scene. And that's exactly what had happened. But when it happened, it was badass. I gotta say, it was one of the coolest, most engaging scenes, even though it was a slab dark. Sometimes when there's dark scenes, it's hard to see the action. I still thought it was really well choreographed. You could see the Spider-Man that were fighting with the different types of villains and the elements that they had to encounter. It was like the Tobey versus Octavius, or it wasn't even Octavius. It was like the Tobey versus Goblin, and then you got the Andrew Garfield's fighting, Electrode and stuff like that. It was like they were fighting their respective villains that they had to fight back in the day. I will say at some points I got lost about which Spider-Man was who. But there is a little bit of a banter scene before they get into the fight, and it feels like one of those scenes where they're talking about, oh, my back. Tobey Maguire actually did have really bad back issues, I think, at the end of or in the middle of shooting Spider-Man 2. And it was part of the reason I think that he kind of signed off on not being Spider-Man anymore after the third one, besides studio interference and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure he was getting older as an actor, and he was actually getting hurt sometimes when he's performing some of these stunts. And so it was an interesting callback to talk about, the back issues of Spider-Man and stuff like that. So I liked them kind of just portraying each other. And then, Andrew Garfield's like, I'm not good enough. And he's like, I lost him. I lost my Gwen. I lost my Stacy. I lost my girl. And, every single one of them has suffered some sort of loss. And so, what do we have? So the Spider-Man battle their respective enemies together. After initially struggling to fight them as a team, the Spider-Man must decide to trust their instincts and plan a coordinated attack on the villains, which I was like, can't you already do this? Don't you already have spider sense? I know that they said that they're used to working solo, but it's just like, one of them, worked on Avengers, and, he does bring that to life. So there is team elements at play. They are later joined by Octavius and manage to defeat and cure Connors, Dylan, and Marco after a lengthy battle. Dylan reconciles with his universe's Spider-Man and encouraged to abandon his villainous tendencies. Ned frees Strange from the mirror dimension, who seizes control. I gotta say, Tim Roth came back to talk as the lizard man. I forgot what it's called, the lizard guy. And I was surprised how much they had him talking as a lizard. I was like, this is kind of a weird character to just have talking, but I guess it's just the Suicide Squad Guardians of the Galaxy weirdness that we're just not going to draw attention to a big CGI lizard thing hanging out, he's just going to be one of the guys or one of the girls or one of the team or whatever. So anyways, Tim Roth just shows up for like one scene when he's being turned back into a human, which is pretty crazy. He's been like Abomination or something like that for I don't know how long. I'm assuming that was Abomination, right? I don't know. Fuck if I know. Was that Tim Roth? I might be wrong. That might be somebody else. Was that Dr. Connors? Was that not Tim Roth? I might be getting that wrong. I think I am getting that wrong. I don't see where Tim Roth is on here, but because he wasn't like I don't think Tim Roth was. Maybe that wasn't him. Maybe it was someone from the Spider-Man Andrew Garfield universe that I'm not keen about. I don't know who it is actually. Thomas Hayden Church, Dr. Connors. Rise Fonz. Rise Ifans, the Welsh actor, came back as Dr. Connors. Oh, okay, there we go. That's not Tim Roth as Abomination. I was getting that wrong. Anyways. Okay, so they're sending everybody back. Everyone's kind of coming back to their own selves. They bring back Dr. Connors, and let me see. Ned frees Strange from the mirror dimension, who seizes control of the spell, and works to protect the universe as the barriers begin to break down. I can't hold it any longer, Peter. Meanwhile, an enraged Parker fights and overpowers the Goblin, wanting to kill him. And this is the part where it's just like, he's going, boosh, a boosh, a beesh, a beesh, a beesh, a beesh, a beesh, and then slaps, beesh, beesh, beesh. When they're going ham as Spider-Man, and when he's getting the punches in, and the enemy's like, and then they get like spider, some web on their throat, and that pulls them closer to Spider-Man for another fist in the face. Like, this is like, oh my God. If we saw Spider-Man go ham, then it would be probably something like this. It's intense. And he basically does all but tries to kill Goblin because He is stopped right at the very end. So Parker fights and overpowers the Goblin, wanting to kill him for May's death, but he is stopped short by the Parker from the Goblin universe, the Tobey Maguire Parker, and he's the one holding back the glider that Holland is getting ready to slice directly into the freaking Goblin. And it's like Spider-Man on Spider-Man violence. And you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, fucking Goblin stabs Toby in the back, of course, as usual. I was like, damn it. I was worried the entire time that Toby was on screen that this was going to happen. I was like, someone's going down. I was like, this is not good. This is the Ben Kenobi of the world. We need to watch out. So Parker ends up injecting the Goblin with the cure and restoring him to a regretful Osborn. At Parker's request, Strange fixes the spell, sending the alternate Spider-Man and villains back to their respective universes, while making everyone forget Parker's existence. I gotta say, the reasoning that the other Spider-Man coming into our universe was kind of convenient. They were just kind of like, oh, I guess our Spider-Man, or your Spider-Man, Holland, needs help. And that's why we're here. They're just kind of like very accepting of just like jumping into the world. Felt very much, I was just like, all right. And in the same way, they're just kind of like, bye. You know, everyone's like waving goodbye. The Toby and Andrew are like holding each other up. Andrew's holding Toby up, cracking jokes about him being stabbed. He's like, oh, don't worry about this. This has happened before. Like callbacks to the older movies. I will say the writing in some of the villains, now that I think about it, they literally say some of the same things they do in the older movies. You know, the power of the sun in the palm of my hands. You know, it's just like that type of shit. Sometimes it felt a little bit forced in a way. I was like, what? Why are you even saying that right now? But anyways, a lot of Goblin references and stuff like that. Dafoe reiterating some of the things that he was saying in his trilogy or in the movie he was in. But crazy ending. Just wrapping all this up on top of the universe like collapsing at the same time. So Strange fixes the spell, sending the alternate Spider-Man and their villains back to their respective universes while making everyone forget Parker's existence. Parker and MJ reaffirm their love for each other before the spell officially starts. And this is the part I was starting to feel like tears. I was like, oh shit. I'm starting to feel the waterworks in a Spider-Man movie. And I think it's from the Zendaya relationship with him. It was like, oh shit, I don't want them to forget each other. I was like, oh shit, no, don't do that. And Parker, he says that he will introduce himself later. He'll find his best friend, he'll find his girlfriend Zendaya, he'll find MJ, he'll find them and reintroduce himself and explain everything that happened. Later, Parker tries to reintroduce himself to MJ and Ned, but cannot bring himself to do it. Parker, and mostly because I think he sees that they are quote unquote more successful without him. They're able to live lives without being attached of having the stigma of Spider-Man on them, which paints a target on their back, which is why superheroes are wearing masks, so that it protects the ones around them, but also allows them to do things that they really want to do, such as go to college. MIT. Little side tangent, sidebar. I can't believe Flash is trying to all of a sudden be best friends with Spider-Man. All of a sudden, you know what I want. I want you to say that I'm best friends with Spider-Man, and he's just a piece of shit the entire time, trying to sell his book and whatnot. I was cracking up at a lot of the Flash Thompson scenes, but he is kind of an ass. And then finishing up on the last scene, Parker visits May's grave, joined now by unaware Hogan. And it kind of threw me off because they're just both standing at Aunt May's grave. and Hogan completely forgets who Spider-Man is, and it's like, oh shit, he's going to be living clearly off the grid. One of the most interesting things is how Parker, he vows to, Parker visits May's grave, joined by a now unaware Hogan, and vows to carry on. Parker moves into a new apartment and creates a new suit from scratch to resume his heroics. It's kind of interesting. It feels like this movie definitely kind of feeds into where the Sam Raimi trilogy technically could sort of pick up off, just in the way that he's moving into his own place and kind of growing up in that way. In the mid-credits scene, the universe displaced Eddie Brock and his symbiote companion, Venom, sit at a bar and talk with the bartender about other superhumans, Thanos, and the Blip. While pondering how to protect this world, the duo is swiftly transported back to their universe by Strange's spell, unknowingly leaving part of the symbiote on the counter. So now Venom is now part of the universe. The final credit scene is what I've heard is going to be the trailer for the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And it basically is showing the interaction of Doctor Strange meeting and crossing over into the Wandaverse universe, or whatever they want to call that, meeting Wanda. And on top of that, he is meeting evil Doctor Strange from the What If series. We have an official crossover across multi dimensions and multiverses. The What If series seems that it is now canon. So, at least in the MCU. Let me know what you thought about Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. Please check out LuckyDogPodcast.com for all the reviews, everything you need to know social media-wise, all of that. Follow, like, subscribe, thumbs up, do all the good things you can do to hit that support button. That's how we grow. Let me know what you thought about Spider-Man No Way Home. Let me know what you thought about the breakdown of the review. Let me know how I can improve. If you want the full review, yes, this is a more condensed review than what will be released on the Patreon. The Patreon members will get the full slab of the review on patreon.com/LuckyDog You will get all the links and everything you need to know to follow this Lucky Dog podcast in the description. Thank you for listening to the Lucky Dog Podcast, and take it easy. I got like 3 more seconds of things to say. This is going to have spoilers right here, right now for the Hawkeye show. Just if you have not caught up with Hawkeye for the first 5 episodes, don't worry about it. Just check on to the next podcast. Thank you. So we're going to talk about that for like 20 seconds. I was like, holy Santa Claus shit, the Kingpin. Oh, we should have known this at this point, that we were going to have crossovers of all different kinds. But there was talks that Vincent D'Onofrio was going to reprise his role as Kingpin. I was like, yes! So fucking excited to see Vincent D'Onofrio reprise his role. It's a very brief role, at least in it's only just a screenshot in the first episode of, or the 5th episode of Hawkeye. But this means something's coming. Something is a coming.